What have you seen in your counseling practice of college students who are a little bit more on the lonely side or have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of fear of rejection, so they have a lot of appeasing
Mm-hmm.
type
You're right.
behaviors? How do you see it affecting their mental health?
Yeah, it's debilitating to someone who has experienced feelings of loneliness when you are rejected, because if it's a human need that we're all not feeling, we're at a deficit. And then when we experience rejection, it brings us below zero, and it breeds feelings of confusion of self-worth. It brings a lot of doubt of value as an individual and definitely as a contributor. Their family system or their relationship that they're in is kind of a breeding ground for insecurity. The role that self-esteem can play when depression is being experienced in our brain is a big one, while a little bit more sensitively than we would if not when we're experiencing depression. And it's even more important to name, like you were saying at the beginning of our podcast together, to name the feelings as we feel them. Because when we are suppressing those feelings and symptoms of depression, we're also at the same time suppressing the role that our self-esteem is playing in those two things, because I picture them as working as a team together in our brain to create our feelings and our ability to function. And so I've seen power in naming those feelings that accompany symptoms of depression and symptoms of low self-esteem, because they exist together, and sometimes it gets a little hazy to figure out which is which, when in reality we're experiencing them all together. Power comes with naming it and being our most authentic self of the source of those feelings.
What I've seen a lot with depression as well is depression lies.
Mm-hmm.
It's this weight. It's this, our brain is not producing the hormones, the
Right.
synapses that it should be. And so everything is sent through a negative cloud.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't answer the phone because they don't like me anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't invited because they're rejecting me, even though there
Mm-hmm.
may be way other different circumstances. And so it's the negative self-esteem has like all the fuel it needs to grow, flourish, and
Mm-hmm.
get darker, heavier. And then that in turn feeds the depression. So it's like this
Right.
feedback loop that
Yeah.
continues to grow. And that affects the self-esteem, it affects your self-perception, and affects whether or not I feel even the energy to come out. I've heard people say, like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm going out and I don't have skin on. Like when you're just feeling
Mm.
so raw and exposed, I have a difficulty managing and regulating that. Struggling with pressure, struggling with expectations is one thing. Struggling with depression is like a heavier weight of something else.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get
Right.
into that a little more in a little bit because we want to stay
Mm-hmm.
on relationships. But being alone allows depression so much more room to flourish. Because, like you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, connection. When I'm closely connected to someone else who truly knows me, they see the
Mm-hmm.
difference of depression is starting to shape who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't who you are. I know who you
Mm-hmm.
are. You're way more outgoing than this. I just can
Mm-hmm.
almost see the meta
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
depression on us. And so also welcoming our friends' feedback of
Right.
they're not insulting us, they're not criticizing us, they
Mm-hmm.
care. And now shifting more to romantic relationships, because in romantic relationships, there can be really a healthy, loving, caring, flourishing relationships that turn into long-term marriages. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's also relationships that really scar us, even cause
Mm-hmm.
trauma because they're
Mm-hmm.
toxic,
Mm-hmm.
or because they can be emotionally abusive.
When I think about characteristics of green flags in relationships, I'm thinking someone who brings authentic feelings to the surface, whether that's authentic feelings about yourself, authentic feelings or characteristics about themselves. I think we can kind of all agree we know what it feels like when we are ourselves and when that other person is themselves.
What's the
So,
difference between I get to be myself, I get to show up and be me, versus I have to pretend to be someone else or
right.
tease and say the right thing?
Mm-hmm. And acknowledging that sometimes that might pop up. Are we feeling most of the time our authentic self versus are we feeling most of the time like I'm appeasing or I'm kind of acting like a robot to please this
Well, in the
person?
first date, we're always,
Right.
putting our best foot forward, putting
Yes.
on,
Yeah.
look how great I am, trying to, we're trying to attract somebody else. But I would say it's more ongoing. You're on the second month,
Right.
and they still don't know who you really are, or what you really believe, or how you really feel. And there's a fear, if I let them know, then it's going to end everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big warning sign for me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. Do I trust myself, and do I trust this person that I can keep being myself and still have a secure place in this relationship?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.